There is a short verse in the New Testament that has raised questions for centuries. It describes an event mentioned only once, without explanation, without details, and without additional commentary. A moment surrounded by silence. A moment that involves angels, authority, and divine judgment. The Bible tells us that the Archangel Michael once disputed with the devil, not over power, not over a kingdom, not over control of the world, but over the body of Moses. That single statement has generated many theories, many explanations, and many hypotheses over time. And before we analyze these hypotheses, we need to ask the fundamental question: what does Scripture actually say, and why was this moment recorded? The letter that mentions this episode was written by Jude, who introduces himself as the brother of James. From early on, many recognized him as a respected voice in the early church, and his purpose is straightforward: to correct errors, to warn against false teachers, and to expose spiritual arrogance. It is in this context that Jude mentions the dispute over the body of Moses. The episode appears only once in the entire Bible. In Jude chapter 1, verse 9, we read, "But when the Archangel Michael, disputing with the devil, argued about the body of Moses, he did not dare to pronounce a judgment of malediction against him, but said, 'The Lord rebuke you.'" That is all Scripture states. No motive is explained. No accusation is described. No outcome is revealed. The verse ends, and the text moves on. The Bible presents Michael as a high-ranking angelic figure, directly associated with God's authority and with the order that God establishes. In the book of Daniel, Michael appears as a prince, linked to the protection of the people and involved in real spiritual conflicts. He is not described as an ordinary messenger, but as someone who acts in contexts where there is spiritual dispute, always under divine sovereignty. In the New Testament, the book of Revelation also presents him leading the angels in a confrontation against evil. Even so, in every passage, Michael never acts independently. He does not create judgment. He does not establish condemnation on his own. He acts within the limits of God's authority. To understand the background, we need to go back to the Torah. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, Scripture tells us that Moses died on Mount Nebo. He did not enter the promised land. This means that Moses, even after having led the people since the Exodus, did not cross over to live in Canaan, the land God had promised to the patriarchs, and that Israel had awaited for generations. Scripture itself connects this to an episode of great spiritual weight. In a moment of crisis, when the people cried out for water, Moses failed to honor the holiness of God before everyone, and God determined that he would see the land, but would not enter it. This does not erase the greatness of Moses, nor his unique role in biblical history, but it reinforces a central truth: the promise belongs to God, and no human leader, however exalted, replaces the holiness and authority of the Lord. His journey ended there. The Bible states something remarkable. God himself buried Moses, and the location of his tomb was deliberately hidden. To this day, no one knows where it is. There was no shrine, there was no monument, there was no place of pilgrimage. The text does not explain the reason. It simply states the fact. Over time, many interpreters have tried to fill the silence of the text, and this is where the hypotheses arise. It is important to say that these hypotheses are not biblical doctrine, but even so, they exist, they are known, and people need to be aware of them. One of the most cited hypotheses is that Satan wanted to use the body of Moses to generate idolatry in Israel. The idea starts from the fact that Israel had a history of idolatry and that Moses was the greatest figure in the people's story. If the body were found, it could become an object of worship. The Bible, however, does not state this explicitly. It only states that the tomb was hidden. Another hypothesis claims that Satan intended to deceive Israel by using the body of Moses as an instrument of spiritual confusion. This interpretation is based on the biblical role of the devil as deceiver. Once again, Scripture does not confirm this plan. A third, more recent hypothesis speaks of spiritual legal rights. According to this view, Satan would have some kind of right over the body of Moses because of past sins, such as the killing of the Egyptian. This idea arises from a modern legal reading of the spiritual realm. It does not appear in the Torah, in the Tanakh, or in the New Testament. It is a later theological construct. There is also the hypothesis that Satan wanted to hinder some future divine purpose related to Moses. Some associate this with the transfiguration of Jesus, where Moses appears in glory. This hypothesis assumes a kind of preventive interference attempt. Again, the Bible does not make this connection. Another older hypothesis comes from Jewish traditions known in the 1st century. Church fathers such as Origen claim that Jude is referring to a tradition now associated with the Assumption or Testament of Moses. In this scenario, Satan appears as an accuser, and Michael refuses to judge, handing judgment over to God. This reading fits better with the known biblical pattern. Scripture itself helps interpret this. In the book of Zechariah, chapter 3, Satan appears as an accuser, and the response is not confrontation, but authority. The Lord rebuke you. The same pattern appears in the book of Job. Satan accuses, God judges. That is why, among all the hypotheses, the one most consistent with Scripture is the one that understands the episode as a dispute over authority, not as a hidden plot, a scene of accusation, not of conspiracy. The Bible does not reveal to us the exact reason for the dispute. The focus of the text is not to satisfy a curiosity, but to teach spiritual posture. If even the Archangel Michael did not presume authority he did not possess, then how much more should human beings walk with humility and reverence? The dispute over the body of Moses was real. The hypotheses exist, all of them, but the biblical silence remains. And Scripture, in the end, invites us to trust in the God who judges with justice and governs all things. This is where true faith begins. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Your support helps this message reach even more hearts. God bless you.